This is an assessment of various statistics and anecdotes I have picked up on over the last 8 weeks. I'm going to be reading them off the screen just to make it easy on myself. Nothing too fancy. I don't feel like editing. So, coming from Euromed Human Rights Monitor, since October 7th, they've been keeping track of various numbers. Their most recent update, because they are consistently updating it, was December 1st, day 56. 37,400 people injured. 21,022 people been killed. 8,312 of them children. 4,270 of them women. Apparently, 19,660 of them civilians. Now, if you do the math, you subtract 19,660 from 21,022, you get 1,362. Apparently, that's the number of Hamas insurgents that have been killed by Israeli airstrikes and bombings. That's right. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the genocide on the Gaza Strip, the ongoing ethnic cleansing of Palestinians within Gaza by the Israeli Defense Force. Not really a defense force if you think about it. So, if those numbers ring true, then that would mean that only a little more than 6% of the people killed in the Gaza Strip so far are actually part of the Hamas terrorist organization. That's, you're not very good at your job if your goal, if your doctrine is to avoid civilian casualties, like at all costs. I couldn't think of a worse job than this. Maybe the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but I don't think the doctrine of the U.S. was, limit civilian casualties. I think as time goes on, it's being demonstrated more and more that this is intentional from Israel. Let me read some more numbers before I dig into that a bit more. 1.78 million people have been displaced. If you remember early on, Israel told everybody in North Gaza that they have 24 hours to move south. It's believed that that message was sent out in English, and by the time the bombing had started, food, water, electricity, fuel was entirely cut off. There's still a lot of people left. There's still a lot of people. There's still a lot of people under the rubble. So these death numbers, these injuries, extremely likely that this is being undercounted. I'd be surprised if the numbers were lower than these. Especially given the fact that these were put out, I think, just when the pause was ending. There's nothing humanitarian about a pause when once that pause is over, you are far more likely to die. 60,100 completely destroyed units, buildings, houses. 167,400 partially destroyed units. 144 destroyed or damaged press headquarters. There's a lot of press in Gaza right now. And that includes 76 killed journalists. Schools, 262 of them have been damaged. 1,102 industrial facilities have been destroyed. I'm just really curious how it's even possible that all of these structures that have been hit are Hamas bases, are Hamas holdouts. Are you telling me 60,000 units that have been completely destroyed, all of them were harboring Hamas insurgents? Apart from schools and press headquarters and industrial facilities, 95 mosques have been damaged. Churches that have been damaged, the number is 3. So it's not just Islamic places of worship, it's Christian as well. .455 health staff have been targeted. 212 of them have died. 243 of them injured. 22 hospitals have been targeted. 55 clinics. 48 hospitals. Now this means I assume they've either been blown up or shot at by the IDF. This should be like the easiest no-brainer in the world. But you have countless people in Congress who think that their large monetary donations that they get from AIPAC matter more than the tens of thousands of dying people in Gaza. This is intentional. This is ethnic cleansing. You can look all throughout, whether it be Motaz, I think his last name's Aziza. Apologies if I'm butchering it. Just look throughout his page the past 2 months. Or Sean King, who regularly reposts and reshares various journalists, various accounts who are on the ground in Gaza witnessing unfathomable horrors. On my Twitter page, I've been posting about it pretty much nonstop. It's pretty hard to argue that this isn't intentional from Israel. It's getting so bad to the point where the media is finally starting to pick up on it, and even the United States is starting to change its tone regarding this, because you don't just forcefully move 1.5 million people south into an even more condensed area when you already have 2.2 million people living in one of the densest areas in the world. And you get constant rhetoric from Israeli officials, these demons, that, well, why doesn't this country or that country, why aren't any countries accepting Palestinian refugees? Because this isn't a war. This is a violent mass expulsion caused by a fascist apartheid occupying force. Israel is an apartheid state. It's an ethno-nationalist state. It's not a war. It's an eradication. Why should any country accept these people when this is where they live? This is where they were born. Almost half of every single person in Gaza is under the age of 18. The median age, I believe, in Gaza is 19. The propaganda is endless. People on the right saying, oh, well, they voted for Hamas. This is what they get, you know. Aside from the barbarism and the inhumanity of that statement, saying that children deserve to be blown to pieces by U.S. armament dropped by Israel, most people alive today in Gaza could not have voted back in 2006 when the last election took place. And Hamas was seen as the more progressive option at the time. Not to mention, Benjamin Netanyahu considers Hamas to be an asset. Netanyahu's government sees Hamas as an asset that they can control, that they can prop up, and they even fund them because they see them as controlled opposition, because they rather Gaza be unstable so that they're easier to manipulate, easier to control, easier to point at and say, look, I'm the only one who can take care of this. I'm the only one that can protect you. Even though that was clearly demonstrated to be a lie on October 7th. This is all of this is the fault of Benjamin Netanyahu. But to go back even further, it's kind of the fault of Britain, pretty much entirely. The Nakba, they helped initiate it. And now the region is a clusterfuck that nobody really has an answer for to solve. Because a one-state solution is just met with vitriolic racism, saying that, oh, Jews and Arabs, they can't coincide. They can't live together. It's a failed project, and I don't have an answer to solve it. I'm just really tired of seeing so much needless death and suffering, and the most that I can do is bring attention to it in any way I can. I don't have the reach. it's just exhausting seeing so many people just have the worst takes. Soulless psychopaths making excuses for Israel, wiping out entire bloodlines, targeting hospitals, blowing children to pieces, crushing them to death by buildings that have been bombed by Israel. It really is too much. But it's important not to get jaded. It's important not to get numb to it all. But if anything to take away from this, the U.S. I guess like the leaders of like the armed forces, the various, the State Department in general is very, very, very frustrated right now with not only the approach to Israel, but the fact that Israel's basically not listening to a goddamn thing when it comes to intelligence, military intelligence, what not to do, because what's happening right now is essentially the second Nakba, and the fighting on the ground could be compared to Fallujah, perhaps worse. So our leaders, some Western leaders, are actually like waking up to this fact. Those that aren't bought out by Israeli PAC money, the Zionist PAC money. Either way, this conflict will go on for a long time until a multipolar, unilateral, multilateral approach is taken to just broker peace and stabilize the region. It's going to take multiple powers. It's going to take multiple countries. That's the place to start. For the first place to start is an obvious ceasefire. I just can't get over how often disingenuous, bad faith, mean-spirited people conflate anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism, because it's not the same thing. Zionism is colonialist, and it doesn't work anymore. These talking points don't work anymore. Jewish people deserve better than Israel. Far better. And the government there has demonstrated very clear that it is not safe for Jews. Thank you guys for watching throughout the whole video. I didn't expect it to be this long. Share this if you could. Really appreciate it. Thanks for sticking with me. I know I don't put out much, but you'll probably see me covering the next debate. It's probably not going to be that interesting, but everybody hang in there. See you next time.